Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, December 29th, 2021, and today we're going to be taking a look at the state of Virginia's brand new maps for the congressional delegation, in addition to the state Senate and the state House of Delegates map that has also been released for the state of Virginia, altogether in which Democrats, I think, across the state are very pleased to see these brand new maps that could have ultimately ended up worse off than where they were back in the 2020 presidential election when they won the majority of seats, the majority of the congressional delegation in the state of Virginia. And now I think the Democratic Party is very happy with what their new numbers show. Now, it isn't nearly as democratic as the state actually is altogether. I think that there is definitely a more representative map if there was to be a more advanced proposition by the Virginia State Supreme Court. But this compromise, I think, actually puts it at a much closer margin in all of these districts compared to a bunch of other swing state congressional maps. I think that this map definitely represents the Virginia voters better than a bunch of other states have done in terms of representing their voters. But of course, no map is actually perfect. But in the map that was proposed by the Virginia Supreme Court, the one that was actually confirmed is the map on your screen right here. And, sorry, actually, this is not the map. This is the map that was just finalized. The map that I just showed you is the court appointees map, but it actually ended up getting altered a lot. And this is the map that we are now looking at. You can see that there are currently two safe red districts right on the western side of Virginia. This is the very rural area, the very Republican area, a stronghold here for the GOP. As you can see, both of these districts have Republican plus 46 and Republican plus 28. The Democratic Party has 4 safe districts, so of course they're happy about that. 4 districts that no matter what throughout the 2020s will not be competitive, at least as they stand currently. Alexandria, around that area, Northern Virginia, you have the 8th district, which is Democrat plus 50. You have the 11th, which is Democrat plus 32. And then down near Richmond and near Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, you have 2 safe districts. You have Virginia's 3rd, which is Democrat plus 32, and Virginia's 4th, which is Democrat plus 30. And looking at the remaining districts, you have 3 lean Republican districts. You have Virginia's 1st and Virginia's 5th, both of which are Republican plus 14. And then you have Virginia's 2nd, which actually has a Democrat incumbent with a partisan lean of Republican plus 6. So how is this different from the old map? Well, in the old map, you saw a similar amount of safe Republican districts. In fact, the exact same amount. But the difference is now that Abigail Spanberger, who represents Virginia's 7th congressional district, used to be in a Republican plus 5 district and is now in a district that is Republican plus Democrat plus 2. So previously, it was Republican plus 5. Now it is Democrat plus 2, which means that it's a 7-point improvement for the Democratic Party when a Democrat is already winning there. But the downside is that the Republican Party now is 4 points more in the advantage in Virginia's 2nd than where they were previously, which means that Elaine Luria could actually, or if I'm botching that name, please let me know. I believe it's pronounced Elaine Luria, but I could be totally wrong about that, and I do want to get names correctly, so let me know down below. But the Virginia 2nd District here is now 4 points more Republican, which means that the House Democrat here could be in a bit of trouble. But let's take a look at the most recent election results and actually understand what these margins are telling us. And the reason why I point out 2020 is because while the Democratic Party did win control of the Senate and did win the presidency, they by no means had a blue wave in the House of Representatives. In fact, the GOP flipped a total of 15 seats from the Democrats and Libertarians when it came down to the final results. They had a net gain of 12. So the GOP had a significant improvement following this House map, which means that Democrats actually didn't perform at their peak. They didn't perform nearly as well as they did back in 2018. And for these 2 Democrats in Virginia, in the toss-up district and in the Republican-leaning district, to hold on is a testament to their ability to win as an incumbent. Now, looking at the Virginia 7th District, you see that Abigail Spanberger was able to win with a margin that was very narrow, just 2 percentage points. Now, keep in mind, she's working in a Republican plus 5 district, and that's relative to the rest of the nation. So her victory here actually means she won over some Republican voters. The same thing in the Republican +2 district, where you actually saw the Democrat win by nearly 6 points. So knowing that it's 4 points more Republican, that margin could very well narrow down to about 2% in a normal year, like a 2020 type year where Democrats are just narrowly winning the popular vote. But in 2022, the Democrats might be in a bit of trouble. But the map actually doesn't end up as bad as you might think. I mean, looking at this map, the Democrats aren't set for failure as they were in the 2010s. You can actually see that this map right here looks very different than how the map looked in 2010. And I get it. 2010 was a different congressional map. In fact, 2012, 2014, and 2016 were different congressional maps. But at the same time, you see this as a difference in years. 10 years apart, the Republicans go from an 8-3 advantage all the way down to the Democrats being in the advantage at 7-4. So seeing this 7-4 difference, looking at the 8-3 advantage that you saw in the 2010s, whatever it might be, you are looking at the Democratic Party at a significantly better place now than they were before. In fact, if you take a look at the 2012 map, and this is the map that was drawn immediately following the 2010 census year, Republicans had control. In fact, there's a whole process that they went through in order to subvert Democrats having the advantage because they held control of the Senate but lost it. So the Republicans decided to push it off into 2012 after the new state Senate was inaugurated, meaning they had a total control over the redistricting process. But looking at the map here, you had 8-3 in the advantage for the Republican Party, and they were winning in some of these districts by pretty substantial margins. Fast forward to 2014, every single district that Republicans won, they won by a safe margin. There was no level of, no possibility that Republicans were going to have a competitive district in Virginia. It was all going to be solid. And then in 2016, you saw this map roll around, and then 7 districts were still safe red for the GOP, but ultimately this map was forcibly redrawn. It was declared unconstitutional, and by 2018, they had a brand new map. And with that brand new map, Democrats actually gained a number of seats from the GOP. They gained 3 seats in total, bringing them to the majority, which they are now in right now. And you can see that the difference actually isn't super substantial relative to where it was in 2018. I mean, the margins actually were closer in 2018 in the 2nd district than they were in 2020. But just looking at the difference, I mean, you see congressional maps that sometimes, 2018, I would say, overall, the Democratic Party had a better popular vote result. But looking at the 2020 results, they did better in some of these swing districts. But now they're drawn in a way that the Democratic Party should be happier about. I think that now looking at what they could have had with the court appointees map, this map could have been significantly worse. We'll get into the state Senate and the state House delegates in just a moment. But just for reference, what could have been, this is the map that was drawn by the court appointee. So this was someone who was put in by the Virginia Supreme Court because the independent commission could not work together. The Democrats walked out, the Republicans were seemingly proposing 2 preposterous maps, and they just couldn't come to a consensus, so it ultimately broke. Because they needed to agree on the map, and there were equal sides, both equal Democrats and Republicans, they simply couldn't do it. So the Supreme Court appointed someone to, the Virginia Supreme Court appointed someone to draw a new map, and it was under deliberation and consideration by the Supreme Court. And what this new map did was drew Jennifer Wexton into a more competitive district where she previously was in a Democrat +12 district. So now she's in Democrat +2 under this proposed map that ultimately failed. So this is not the new map, but this is what the Democrats could have had. Then the 7th district would have gotten more solid, going from Republican +5 to Democrat +14. But the incumbent, Abigail Spanberger, would have been removed from the district and thrown into a safe red district. In fact, this solidified 4 safe red districts and 4 safe blue districts. Now there are only 2 safe red districts and 3 toss-up, 3 competitive Republican districts. And that competitive Republican district would have remained the 2nd district in the state of Virginia, but ultimately they would be drawing out an incumbent, making an open race, and making the 10th district more competitive. Why would they do that? Why have an open race? I mean, at the end of the day, they aren't drawing this map to favor the Democratic Party. They were drawing it because this is what they thought a fair map would resemble. But the Virginia Supreme Court decided to finalize on this map, and the Democratic Party ended up doing better. Abigail Spanberger today announcing that she will run in the 7th Congressional District because she is now drawn back into the 7th Congressional District. Before, she was considering, am I going to run in the 7th District? Is this the right district for me to run in? Because she would have been carpetbagging. She would have been representing a district she simply did not live in. Now she's back in her own district, and this map, I think, is very solid for incumbents because it keeps them right where they were before. Now, this new map also benefits the Democratic Party in ways that are beyond the simple congressional map. And we can actually see that in what this report was released. It says here that the Democrats would be favored by 6 seats in the Virginia Senate, 23-17. Now, keep in mind, the Democratic Party's majority in the Virginia Senate is just 21-19. So in 2022, there won't be a Senate map, a Senate election for the state of Virginia. So Democrats might be able to survive a red wave on the House map in the state of Virginia. And then in 2023, when the Virginia Senate is up, the map favors them by a 6-seat advantage. Before this, Senate map never favored the Democratic Party. In fact, if you take a look at both the House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate, they were very large advantages for the GOP at different periods of time over the 21st century. It got a lot closer over the 2010s, but the Republicans were still in the advantage from 2000, actually I think for the entirety up until 2019, when the Republicans were able to win back control. The entirety of the 2010s, not the 2000s. So looking at this advantage, Democrats, I think, are very happy being up 6 seats. In a normal type of year, they would win 23-17, expanding what they already have. In addition to that, the House of Delegates now is an advantage for the Democratic Party, 53-47. Now, keep in mind, the previous House of Delegates result for the state of Virginia was I believe 55-45 in 2019. Then 2021 rolled around and the Democrats actually lost control of the Virginia House of Delegates. Let's go ahead and see if we can find, just by using Wikipedia's jumping around here, we go through 2021 state elections, we go into 2021, and we can find that in the state of Virginia, in the local elections, that the Republican Party was able to win a total of, let's see what the finalized map here was, 52 seats to the Democratic Party's 48. So being in the advantage now 53-47 means they could easily flip this come 2023. In addition to that, we need to take a look at the Senate elections in the state of Virginia. You can see that in the state Senate elections, the Democratic Party actually won back control back in 2019. And it ended up being a pretty good result, I would say. The Democrats were 21-19, and that was with a map that wasn't really too favorable for them. And again, it is now more favorable for them, 23-17. And let's go ahead and find the Virginia State Senate. Let's see if we will be able to find it just by jumping around. I'm not entirely sure. Virginia General Assembly, State Senate, Virginia 2019 state Senate result, and the Democratic Party was able to flip 2 Senate seats. Now, keep in mind that this new map is more favorable. In a year like 2019, they could potentially win more than that. If the map at a baseline is a 23-17 advantage for the Democratic Party, I would say they should be very hopeful about what some of these results will bring. But the final point being that the redistricting commission, which ultimately failed, gave the Supreme Court a lot more power than what was initially thought. And there was a lot of contentious deliberation about what a new map would look like, whether or not the Democrats or the Republicans would end up in the advantage finalizing these maps. Honestly speaking, I think the GOP does have a bit of an inherent lean simply because they could win the majority of seats in the state of Virginia if it is a red wave year, despite the state voting for Joe Biden by double digits in the 2020 election. But that's what wave years are for. Sorry about that, my screen recorder cut out, but I wanted to say that I think the Democratic Party should overall be very happy with this map. It could have been drawn so much worse, and the Virginia Supreme Court had so much power than they initially thought. And while this may be a negative reflection on bipartisan, independent redistricting commissions, I also think we should look at it and say, while there may be some faults, the map ultimately didn't end up misrepresenting voters in a way that was completely ludicrous, as we have seen in a bunch of other states that have intentionally gerrymandered, even when they do have quote-unquote bipartisan independent commissions for the redistricting process. So overall, the Democratic Party is going to benefit from this map. They are now in the advantage in the state Senate, in the state House of Delegates, which will also be up in 2023. I think following the results in 2020, this is a map that is very much what I expected, knowing that Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama twice all won the state of Virginia and won it sometimes by very large margins. The state of Virginia should be more, at least pro-Democrat in the new map than it was previously, because the older map was drawn by and for Republicans. It was confirmed to keep incumbents in solid positions. In fact, if you look after the redrawing of the map, Same number of electoral votes, right? You go from 8 to 3, and ultimately they are solid 8 districts. All likely, all safe. 2014, all safe. 2016, all safe but one, and then they were forced to redraw the map, and then it ultimately ended up more in favor of the Democratic Party. But again, you are working in a state that was previously lopsided in favor of the GOP, despite in 2012, Obama winning the state, in 2016, Hillary Clinton winning the state. So these maps, these districts were previously drawn in such an unfair manner, and now I do think that even though the Democrats may have an advantage in the state Senate, advantage in the House of Delegates, and that is all up for contention, for discussion about whether or not that is a fair way of drawing the maps. At the end of the day, the Democrats have historically won the majority of the elections in the past 10 years in Virginia, and more recently, while they may have failed in the House of Delegates and the governor map, that is one election that the GOP can cling on to. That was their first statewide election since 2009, and I think that's something that definitely needs to be pointed out as well. While there may have been recent successes by the Virginia Republican Party, but that by no means says that the state itself is all of a sudden a Republican state. Keep in mind, Democrats were able to win in Kansas and Republicans were able to win in Massachusetts and Maryland in 2018. That doesn't mean those states are turning in different directions by any regard at all. So, final map here, looking at it, it's going to be very similar to the one we see now in terms of overall delegation. I think some improvements for certain candidates and some non-improvements. I think that some of them will end up performing worse just based off of what we know. And that is the final map and the final analysis of the state of Virginia and their brand new map that has just been confirmed by the Virginia Supreme Court and will likely last through the next 10 years. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my redistricting election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.